Friday night at the Sterling Heights Hotel in Santa Monica gleamed with its signature grandeur. This wasn't just any hotel. It was a symbol of luxury and sophistication. Towering palm trees framed the entrance, their leaves swaying gently under the soft glow of neon lights. A massive crystal chandelier, handcrafted in Italy, sparkled on the high ceiling, casting radiant reflections onto the marble floor. The main lobby was a symphony of sound and motion. Elegant guests dressed in high-end attire checked in, while hotel staff briskly maneuvered luggage carts stacked with premium leather bags. The clinking of glasses from the nearby bar blended with soft, ambient music streaming from ceiling speakers. Every detail exuded opulence, as if to declare that this was a place reserved for the deserving few. Behind the front desk, however, Rachel wore a very different expression. In her neatly pressed uniform, now wrinkled after 12 hours on duty, she stood weary but composed. At 30-something, Rachel took pride in her professionalism, yet today had tested her patience. An endless parade of demanding guests had worn her down, from those insisting on special room preferences to those complaining over trivial matters. Rachel silently wished for a peaceful end to the night, but the steady stream of arrivals made such hopes seem far-fetched. The clock on the wall crept toward 10 p.m., and she reminded herself, just a few more hours to go. Just then, the large revolving door swung open, letting in a gust of cool evening air. Rachel glanced up, her eyes instinctively scanning the person who entered. It was a man whose appearance was so unremarkable she almost turned back to her work without a second thought. He wore a faded gray hoodie, distressed jeans, and sneakers that looked like they had traveled many miles. No luggage. Only a small leather crossbody bag, worn and scuffed with age. The man moved unhurriedly, pausing at the entrance to survey the bustling lobby as though searching for someone or something. There was something about his gaze that unsettled Rachel. Unlike the usual weary or anxious guests, this man seemed untouched by the chaos around him, as if he existed in his own serene bubble. Just another passerby, Rachel thought, suppressing a sigh of annoyance. Years in the hospitality industry had sharpened her ability to profile guests. Men like him often requested unreasonable discounts or tried to haggle over room rates. Probably another one looking for trouble, she muttered to herself. The man walked toward the front desk with quiet confidence, unaffected by the curious glances from those nearby. He nodded politely, his eyes calm but perceptive, devoid of any urgency. Rachel scanned him from head to toe, her mind quickly concluding, he doesn't belong here. This was a luxury hotel, not a place for someone with such a modest appearance. Good evening, the man greeted, his voice deep and steady. I'd like to book a room for tonight, please. Rachel forced a polite smile, though her tired eyes betrayed her irritation. She tapped a few keys on her keyboard, not bothering to check anything in earnest. I'm sorry, but we're fully booked, she replied, her tone courteous but distant. The man raised an eyebrow slightly. No rooms at all, he asked, not sounding surprised, just confirming. Rachel took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. That's correct, sir. We're fully booked tonight. There's an inn a few blocks away. I think they might be able to assist you. Her tone wasn't harsh, but it carried a subtle judgment. She glanced briefly at his hoodie and worn shoes, her expression betraying her thoughts. That place would suit you better. The man nodded, a faint smile crossing his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. Thank you, he said, stepping back without argument. This caught Rachel off guard. Most people refused to accept a flat denial so easily, but instead of leaving, the man moved to a corner of the lobby where luxurious leather chairs were arranged and sat down calmly. Rachel couldn't help but glance at him a few times as she continued her work. There was something about this man that unsettled her, a strange tranquility amidst the chaos of a busy evening. But she quickly dismissed the thought. Just another guest who doesn't know his place, she told herself. She didn't realize that this moment would mark the beginning of a life-changing lesson. Rachel tried to focus on her work, deliberately ignoring the man sitting in the lobby corner. Yet she couldn't deny that his presence stood out like an odd note in the symphony of luxury that surrounded them. His simple outfit, the aged leather bag, and his relaxed demeanor seemed completely out of place in a setting meticulously designed to exude extravagance. Over the next several minutes, Rachel occasionally caught glimpses of him. He didn't do much except sit there, his eyes calmly observing everything. The bustling front desk, guests coming and going, the lively chatter at the bar. At times, his gaze landed on Rachel, not in a critical or intrusive way, but as if he was quietly studying her. It made her uneasy. She turned away quickly, telling herself that he was just another unremarkable stranger. However, the more she observed him, the more Rachel began to notice something unusual. The man didn't fit the mold of anyone she'd encountered before. Most walk-in guests were anxious, stressed, or eager to make an impression in hopes of securing assistance. But he was different. Even after being rather bluntly turned away, he remained composed, serene even, as though he didn't need the hotel, but rather the hotel needed him. The clock on the wall struck 10:30 p.m., and the lobby had finally quieted down. The last few groups of guests were finishing their check-in process, leaving behind a rare moment of calm. Rachel let out a sigh of relief, thinking she was finally nearing the end of another long night. Just as she reached for her glass of water, the man stood up and walked back to the front desk. Rachel felt a surge of irritation. Him again. She couldn't understand why some people simply refused to give up. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his tone as calm as before, "but I noticed a few people just checked in. Are you absolutely sure there are no rooms available?" Rachel set her glass down, her gaze sharp and unyielding. "Yes, sir," she replied, trying to keep her composure. "Those guests had reservations, and all remaining rooms have been booked. I already explained this to you." The man didn't seem offended. He nodded as if what she said made perfect sense. "I understand," he said gently. "But if there are any cancellations tonight, could you let me know?" Rachel bit her lip, struggling to keep her frustration in check. "Sir," she said, her voice firmer now, "I've made it clear that we have no rooms available. If you need a place to stay, the inn I mentioned earlier is still your best option." Pausing for a moment, she couldn't help but let her irritation slip further. Her eyes flicked to his worn hoodie and scuffed shoes. "To be honest, I think that would be a better fit for your situation." As the words left her mouth, Rachel felt a pang of guilt. But the man didn't react. He simply looked at her with calm, steady eyes, unfazed by her remark. "Thank you," he said, his voice still as composed as before, then turned and walked back to his seat in the corner. In the minutes that followed, Rachel tried to focus on her work, but an uneasy feeling lingered in her mind. Why hasn't he left, she wondered. Why does he just sit there, observing everything so calmly, as if he's unaffected by how I treated him? She stole glances at him now and then. He wasn't on his phone or doing anything to pass the time. Instead, he continued to observe, almost as if he were mentally cataloging every detail of the hotel. The movements of the staff, the interactions between guests, even the small dynamics of the room. At one point, Rachel noticed him assisting a young bellhop who was struggling with a luggage cart. The man showed him how to balance the load so it wouldn't tip over. The bellhop gave a shy, grateful smile in return. Rachel frowned. Who does he think he is, helping people like that, she thought. He's not even staff here. The clock struck 11 p.m. The lobby was now nearly empty. Rachel, weary from her long shift, glanced around, hoping nothing unexpected would disrupt her final stretch of work. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of the man in the corner occasionally glancing in her direction, as if he were waiting for something. The sensation of being watched made her uncomfortable, but she brushed it off. He wasn't doing anything wrong. As long as he doesn't cause trouble, it's fine. As time passed, Rachel began to question whether she had been fair. The man didn't fit the mold of the usual troublesome guests. He hadn't begged, gotten angry, or even complained after being turned away. Yet his calm demeanor unsettled her more than any outburst could. Though she tried convincing herself that none of this mattered, a nagging sense of unease lingered. She didn't know that this moment was just the beginning of a revelation that would change her life forever. The next morning, the Sterling Heights Hotel had a completely different atmosphere. Early sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, bathing the grand lobby in a warm glow. Rachel, just starting her morning shift, still felt the fatigue of the long night before. She took a quick sip of coffee, trying to focus on the day ahead, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the mysterious man from the previous evening. She wondered when he had left and if he had managed to find a place to stay. But the morning's flurry of activity soon swept her into its rhythm. Everything was business as usual until an announcement came over the intercom, requesting all staff to gather in the main conference room for an urgent meeting. An unscheduled meeting was a rare occurrence, especially during a busy morning like this. Rachel could feel the curiosity rippling through her coworkers as they quietly filed into the conference room. She chose a seat in the back corner, trying to mask her exhaustion and silently hoping it was just a routine update. The heavy silence was soon broken as the door to the conference room swung open. The general manager, Mr. Calloway, walked in with his usual confident stride. But today there was an unmistakable excitement in his expression. Behind him was a man dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, radiating an air of quiet authority. Rachel froze. It was the man from last night, but now he was unrecognizable. Gone were the faded hoodie and worn sneakers. Instead, he wore a perfectly fitted suit, polished leather shoes, and carried himself with an understated confidence that seemed to shrink the room around him. Her heart raced as the realization hit her. Who is he, really? "Good morning, everyone," Mr. Calloway began, his voice tinged with excitement. "I'm thrilled to introduce a very special guest who decided to visit our hotel last night." Unannounced. Rachel felt her heart stop as the man's gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly on her. She tried to avoid his eyes, but the weight of her embarrassment and nervousness pressed down on her. "Allow me to introduce," Mr. Calloway continued, his face beaming with pride, "Mr. Elon Musk, the new owner of the Sterling Heights Hotel." The room fell completely silent. Whispers stopped mid-sentence and every eye turned to the man. Rachel felt her body freeze, heat rushing to her face as memories of the previous night flooded back. The curt rejections, her judgmental glances, and the impatient tone in which she suggested he look for a cheap inn. All of it replayed in her mind with excruciating clarity. She had disrespected the man now standing before the room, not just a guest but her boss. Elon stepped forward, his smile subtle but his gaze penetrating, as though he could see through each person in the room. "I've always believed the best way to understand a business is to experience it firsthand, from the perspective of the most ordinary guest," he began, his voice steady and warm, yet carrying a gravity that made the room feel smaller. "Last night I had the opportunity to see how this hotel operates, to observe how you all work under pressure. I witnessed hardworking, dedicated staff who genuinely put guests first, but I also saw areas where we can improve, not just in our processes, but in how we treat people." He paused, his eyes sweeping across the room again, before landing on Rachel. This time they lingered, and Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. He didn't mention her name, but she knew he was alluding to their interaction the night before. Shame and guilt washed over her, making her wish she could vanish on the spot. Rachel's thoughts raced as she tried to prepare for what might come next, her stomach twisting in anticipation of the consequences. "This hotel isn't just a place for guests to stay," Elon continued, his voice carrying weight. "It's a place where every small detail can make a difference. A smile, a kind attitude, a bit of patience. All of these can transform someone's experience into something memorable, or quite the opposite." Rachel bit her lip, feeling as though every word he spoke was aimed directly at her. But instead of feeling condemned, she sensed something deeper. This wasn't a reprimand, but an opportunity to grow. "I'm not here to point out faults," Elon said, his tone softening. "I'm here to help us all improve, to ensure that every member of this team becomes the best version of themselves." As Elon finished, the room erupted into applause, but Rachel remained silent. She knew this encounter wouldn't just end here. She hadn't merely faced her new boss, she had confronted the need for change in herself. Not just in her job, but in how she treated others. The meeting with Elon Musk didn't just leave Rachel feeling ashamed. It opened a door for her to reflect and transform. And this was only the beginning of her journey toward change. After the meeting, the room gradually emptied as staff members filed out. But Rachel stayed rooted in her seat, as if her feet were glued to the floor. What had just happened felt like a whirlwind, stripping away all the confidence she once held. Elon Musk's words echoed in her mind, especially the ones about kindness and the power of small gestures. She had made a mistake, but it wasn't just about denying a guest. It was about the attitude behind it, the disregard, impatience, and judgment based on appearances. The image of the man in the worn hoodie standing at the front desk now loomed clearly in her mind, no longer obscured by the bias she had placed on him. Rachel realized that the lesson wasn't just about how she treated a guest. It was a wake-up call about how she viewed people in general. It wasn't the hotel that needed change, it was her. And for the first time, she felt ready to take that step. Rachel was about to stand up and leave the room when a familiar voice spoke softly behind her. "Rachel, isn't it?" She turned around, her heart pounding as she came face to face with Elon Musk. He stood there, calm yet commanding, his gaze steady and piercing. His eyes carried no trace of reproach, but the depth of his look made her feel as if he could see straight through her. Yes, sir," Rachel stammered, struggling to steady her voice as nervousness crept in. Elon stepped closer, maintaining a respectful distance, close enough to engage her, yet far enough to give her room to breathe. "I want to thank you for your hard work last night," he began, his tone surprisingly composed. "I know working in the service industry isn't easy, especially when you're dealing with long hours and demanding guests." His words struck Rachel like a thunderclap. She hadn't expected him to begin with gratitude instead of criticism. A part of her felt relieved, but the weight of her guilt remained heavy. I, I'm sorry for how I treated you last night," Rachel admitted, bowing her head. Her voice trembled with remorse. "I was wrong to judge you by your appearance, and I'm truly ashamed of my attitude." Elon remained silent for a moment, giving her space to speak. When she finally lifted her head, she saw him smiling gently, not with judgment, but with understanding and forgiveness. "There's no need to apologize," he said. "What matters is that you've recognized what needs to change. We all have tough days and none of us are perfect. The most important thing is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. His words not only eased her guilt, but inspired her to change. Elon Musk wasn't just a billionaire. He was a true leader, someone who could encourage self-reflection and growth without force or blame. In the days following her encounter with Elon Musk, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about his words. She began to see her job differently, not as a burden or merely a source of income, but as an opportunity to make a difference in every guest's experience. Rachel started making small yet meaningful changes to her approach. She greeted every guest with a genuine smile, regardless of how they were dressed or how much luggage they carried. She listened instead of jumping to conclusions, and she made an effort to find solutions for even the most challenging requests instead of dismissing them outright. These shifts weren't just about improving her performance, they were about reshaping her perspective on people and life. The transformation wasn't easy, but it was deeply fulfilling, and Rachel found herself becoming not just a better employee, but a better person. Her encounter with Elon Musk had planted the seed for a journey of growth, and she was determined to see it through. Rachel's transformation didn't go unnoticed. Customers began to leave the front desk with smiles instead of frustration. Even her colleagues appreciated the change. A young staff member, once scolded by Rachel for mishandling the reservation system, now felt comfortable seeking her advice. Most importantly, Rachel herself felt lighter going to work each day, free from the burden of stress and resentment that had once weighed her down. As time passed, the story of Elon Musk's surprise visit became a legend within the hotel. No one knew if he would return, but the possibility of the owner showing up unannounced motivated everyone to strive for their best. For Rachel, that night wasn't just an embarrassing memory. It was a turning point in her life. She realized her job wasn't merely about fulfilling tasks, but about embodying human values, kindness, patience, and withholding judgment. Whenever she greeted a new guest, she remembered Elon Musk's words. Even the smallest actions can create the biggest differences. Rachel never knew if she would meet Elon Musk again, but she silently thanked him for the lesson. A lesson on kindness and how it could transform not only the lives of others, but her own. Life at the Sterling Heights Hotel gradually returned to its routine, but for Rachel, nothing felt the same. Her perspective on work, people, and even herself had shifted profoundly. The story of the mysterious guest, Elon Musk, continued to resonate with her and the entire staff. Rachel began paying more attention to the small details. Every guest who walked through the hotel doors was no longer just a stranger or a reservation number in the system, but an opportunity to practice kindness and compassion. She realized that the hustle and stress of work had once caused her to lose sight of her job's deeper meaning, not just to serve, but to connect and create meaningful experiences. Rachel willingly extended her support to younger colleagues, the ones who had once hesitated to approach her. She even started sharing the lessons she had learned from her own mistakes, hoping her experiences would help them avoid similar pitfalls. Every day, Rachel worked not just to fulfill her duties, but to ensure that her actions reflected the values she had embraced. She had grown into not just a better employee, but a better person. The echoes of Elon Musk's visit remained a guiding force, inspiring her to strive for more and to see the world, and her role in it, in a new light. One afternoon, while Rachel was checking her work emails at the end of her shift, a new message caught her eye. The sender's name, Elon Musk. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the email, and the words on the screen unfolded before her. Rachel, I want to thank you for the effort and transformation you've demonstrated over the past few months. I've heard from management about how your dedication has not only enhanced the experience for our guests, but has also inspired the entire team. What I value most is not perfection, but the willingness to learn and grow. And I believe you've excelled in that regard. Thank you for helping make Sterling Heights more than just a hotel. You've made it a place where everyone feels welcomed and valued. Warm regards, Elon Musk. Rachel read the letter over and over, her emotions surging. It wasn't just a compliment, it was validation of the journey she had undertaken. A smile broke across her face as tears of joy quietly streamed down her cheeks. From that moment on, Rachel no longer saw her job as a burden. For her, each day became an opportunity to grow and improve. She came to understand that kindness isn't just about how we treat others, it's also about how we face our own mistakes and the challenges in our lives. As the glittering lights of Sterling Heights illuminated her new workdays, Rachel felt she was more than just a front desk employee. She was part of something greater, a story of transformation, compassion, and the power of small actions. Rachel's story serves as a powerful reminder of kindness and a profound lesson on how we treat others in everyday life. Too often, we're quick to judge by appearances, rushing to conclusions without realizing the stories and values hidden within each person. Elon Musk, with his thoughtful and humane approach, showed that true leadership lies not in power, but in the ability to inspire others to reach their potential. A small gesture, a timely word, can change not only how someone works, but how they view themselves. What about you? Have you ever judged someone based on appearances or had a moment that taught you the value of kindness? We'd love to hear your story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like to help spread its meaningful message. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more inspiring stories. Let's build a community filled with empathy and understanding together. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey. See you in the next story of hope and inspiration.